I had an MRI. I had a CAT scan. My doctor said, maybe you have MS. Maybe you have this. Maybe you have that.
Jalynn, how did you find carnivore?
How did I find carnivore? Probably about 4 years ago. I actually saw an interview on YouTube with just a young guy doing an interview, or not an interview, but just a testimony of how he had IBS really bad. Like he could barely leave his house, and he's just maybe a guy in his late 20s. And he said that he had tried every diet, and he went on carnivore diet, which he explained what it was, and how that within 3 months he was basically healed. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And of course, I've always been a big meat eater myself, but I've done, I've done keto, and I started keto probably 2013, and off and on. I wasn't always really super strict on it, but I've always been concerned about my health. And back in my 20s, when I was young, I was working in an old folks home, and I remember saying, oh God, I don't want to ever end up like these people, because it's such a sad state. It's such a sad state when people don't have their minds, they don't have their health, they don't have their strength, they're bedridden. And it was just, as a young person, it was really, really hard for me to see, but it scared me in the sense of, I don't ever want to end up like this. I don't want to be old and, heavy and sick and have no mind. So I've always been kind of health conscious. Even when I was young, I was very active. It wasn't so much about diet. It was more exercise. Like since I was 4 in Canada, I was in figure skating since I was 4 years old, and then, got into other sports and other, basketball and swimming, and then I was in martial arts when I was a teenager. So always very loved sports, loved things like that. But in my 20s, of course, I had my children and had a lot of stress and had a lot of things going on. Since I was young, in my 20s, since I had my children, I started to get migraines. And the migraines progressed to the place where in the last 4 years, they were the worst that I've ever had. And they were so bad, Dave, that I could not get out of bed for days. And then I've always had this really bad, deep fatigue, even since my 20s. And even though I had been off of sugar for about 10 years, even when I went keto, even a couple of years before that, I was like, I don't even want to eat sugar anymore because I know it's bad for me. So slowly, I was trying to get, do a good diet and everything. But still, it seemed like after 2020, I got COVID, and I got it really bad. And, the whole thing where I couldn't breathe, I was horribly sick. One of the sickest times I've ever been in my life. And it seemed like after 2020, my migraines, my fatigue, and whatever was going on with me just exacerbated. It just became so intense, so harsh, and I mean, I'm an active person. I'm get up and go get up early, get everything done, work hard, always busy, always just doing something. And I got to the place where I couldn't even get out of bed anymore. I couldn't make my bed anymore. I couldn't even hardly let the dog out. I was living by myself then. And I just was in so much pain. I was in so much pain. And I had been taking some pain medicine that the doctors had given me years prior for my migraines, because I don't know if you've ever had migraines. And migraines are a completely different ballgame than just a regular headache. And I was actually thinking about this last night, and I've never really thought about it. And I know I've heard this said that, people with a lot of migraines tend to have strokes. So it's the same pathway to strokes. So when there's the blood constriction in your head, there is like actual damage that happens and trauma to your brain when you have migraines. And because it's not like a regular headache that just goes away and then the next day you're fine. It's something that affects you for days after, like your speech, Your balance, like writing is horrible. After I had a migraine, I could hardly write at all. And so then when I got to this place where I was so horribly sick, I remember one morning, and I've been a pastor. I've worked in church ministry for 30 years, been a Christian since I was 20 years old, but I never been suicidal and have still not, when I was going through all that. But I did pray, and I said, God, I was so ill. I could not get out of bed. I was so ill in my body. And I remember saying, God, please, you're going to have to heal me or take me, because I can't handle this. And I'm only in my late 40s, and I'm becoming so sick that I can't even work. And so then, like I said, I had been doing keto, and of course, you still feel better on keto than eating the standard American or Canadian diet, bunch of junk food and stuff, which I had avoided for a long time. And still, yet that was not, obviously whatever was going on with me was something greater. And so I kept having this, and then I used to follow, what's his name? I still do. Dr. Berg. He's big into keto, right? So I would watch his videos and things like that. And then carnivore videos in between would start coming up. Carnivore diet. And it was like, I was like, this impression was, do carnivore diet. And I was like, you know what, there's something to this, because it wasn't just about weight loss. People were getting better. People were getting healed of this, that, and the other. And I was like, well, and I have like obviously neurological things going on, which the other thing was that I'm not big in going to doctors. I would rather see somebody like a naturopath, or go the natural pathway as much as possible. Although I do have health professionals in my family, I still don't trust everything about the medical system. And so, and I was never big into, wanting to take medicine. Even the medicine I was taking, I wish I hadn't didn't have to take it. But it was something that helped me get through the day. I mean, and I always tried to like push it off as far and as much as I could, until I was like, okay, I need to take something, because I can't even deal with the pain that I'm in. So my friends also in another province, and in Canada we have provinces, not states. She's like, you need to come stay with us, because you're way too sick. And I'm like, I couldn't even work anymore. And so I decided to move. And but in that time period, I also decided to do carnivore about 4 months prior. So it was May of 22 that the beginning of May, I decided I'm going to start carnivore diet. And then I ended up moving in August. So everything never progressed. I never got worse. But just to backtrack a little bit, I had gone to see a doctor. I had gone to see a neurologist. I had an MRI. I had a CAT scan. My doctor said, maybe you have MS. Maybe you have this. Maybe you have that. So that was kind of like where we were at as far as the doctors go. And so then I ended up moving to a different province. I got just a regular doctor, and she had made an appointment with me also with a neurologist. But in Canada, people say, oh yeah, you have free medical care, but you have to wait months and months, and sometimes like more than a year to see specialists. It's crazy. So that was another thing. I'm like, I'm not waiting for a neurologist to tell me something, when actually the neurologist that I had gone to, he didn't really tell me much. And I'm like, this is just a waste of my time. So long story short, and I don't know if you had ever heard of Ribeye Rach. Have you ever heard of her? Okay. So I had started watching her videos too, and she had a lot of neurological issues. I mean, way worse than mine. She's had brain surgeries, that poor girl. She's been on all kinds of like protocol medicines, therapies, you name it. And that poor girl suffered, and she was bedridden too in her 20s. And so I was watching her and watching her progression. But what I did notice with carnivore diet after about 3 weeks of being on it is that that deep fatigue that I've had since my 20s was gone. So it still took me 14 months, but uh, I still, with all the pain and all the migraines, it left my body so weak all the time. So even though I didn't have that deep fatigue anymore, I still had so much weakness. And again, the headaches were still there. The pain was still there. I actually was in pain for 2 years straight. There was not a night or a day, maybe 2 to 3 hours every once in a while, literally every few months. There'd be no pain in my head, and I'd be like, oh, thank you, God. But it was horrible. That's all I can say. And I mean, if I didn't have my faith in God, I would have been so devastated without hope, because I mean, what in the world is going on with me? I can't even function anymore. So it was about December of 22 that I noticed my energy levels started going up. So it wasn't just, the fatigue was gone. My energy was coming up. And instead of there was literally last winter. So this would have been last winter. I was still in bed for hours and hours. And sometimes I'd only get out of bed at 2 o'clock in the afternoon for maybe 2 or 3 hours and then go right back to bed. It was just so not fatigued, but just weak, just so incredibly weak. But in December, I noticed that my energy level started coming up a little bit so that I could do a little bit of exercise. Because that lying around and not doing anything physically, your muscles, you just get weaker. And I knew that wasn't going to be a help for me. And I love to exercise. So I started doing a little bit of the kettlebells, and got some strength there. January, February, March rolls around of last year. Still not 100%, still a lot of pain in my head, still having issues, but I was getting better where I wasn't sleeping as much. So that was an improvement. And then all of a sudden, it seemed like towards the end of my year, in just maybe April, May, June, July, I had an incredible transformation to the point where the pain was leaving my head, where I was able to get up in the morning, where I was able to stay up longer, where I had these bursts of energy, where I was like, hey, I feel great. And I could go out, go for a drive, go to the store, do things that everybody takes advantage of, really, when you're healthy. And I was like, hey, something's happening. And it was so exciting because, when you think you're losing your life, and that you don't know if you're going to end up being bedridden. And now remember, I told you about when I was in my 20s and I'm saying, I don't want to ever end up like these people. And here I am oh my goodness, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs. I tried to take care of myself, but yet I was ending up like this situation. And it was horrible. That's all I can say. It was horrible. And, but now, so it was May, June, July, the migraines lessened and lessened and lessened to the point where I'm like, I don't need this medicine anymore. And got rid of my medicine. And then I got to the place where I think it was July, I had 2 migraines in the whole month. Whereas my migraines were consistent all the time. There was never any break in between them. And so I was ecstatic. I was so thrilled. And I told my kids I'm moving home. I'm moving back to my home province because my kids are here, and I never really wanted to leave in the first place, but I was forced to, which I was very thankful for my friends and their help. I mean, there was times, Dave, when they had to help me out of bed in the morning because I couldn't even get up to go to the washroom. It was horrible. I mean, that's the state I was in. And so now to come to this place where I was like, wow, I feel like I'm getting back to my old self again. And the fact that I didn't have any pain in my head was absolutely, I was so astounded. That's all I can say. I was astounded by it. And of course, all this time, when I did have time, when I was awake and when I was in my bed, I watched a lot of carnivore videos, a lot of testimonies, and they just kept me encouraged all the time. I'm like, well, this has happened to this person. And I'm somebody that loves to share. I love to share good things, like the gospel. But I also like to share things about carnivore, about how much it helped me and how much it helped, or how much has helped other people. And so I've had a chance to, even when I was still sick, share carnivore, tell people about carnivore. There was a lot of people that have shared information and videos, even in your videos, Dave, and it was like I knew that somewhere along this way this is going to get better. And so I had that hope, right? But that's basically been my journey. So it was 14 months. It took 14 months to get rid of decades of pain.
Good morning, everybody. I cannot tell you what it's like to wake up now with no pain and no sickness in my body. After 14 months of being on carnivore diet, I am completely healed of my chronic pain and migraines.
I'm at the point where I know how to stay healed and how to stay healthy, and again, share my testimony with other people.
Well, congratulations. This is awesome.
Thank you.
One question I've got a couple of questions straight off.
Sure.
And one of those is, do you experience migraines at all now, or are they just completely gone?
I have had, I believe, 3 since August of last year. And I discovered I can't eat eggs, which I'm very, very sad about. So yeah, eggs give me a migraine. So that actually, the last one that happened about a month ago, I was like, oh, I'm going to try eggs. Yeah, that was a bad idea. And I just ate the yolks because I say, a lot of people say, if you are allergic or sensitive, it's usually the whites. And so I just ate the yolks, and yeah, it gave me a migraine. But even when I was doing carnivore, I did mostly beef. I hardly ate any eggs anymore. I just craved beef. I felt wonderful on beef. Absolutely. I always notice that when I eat salmon, oysters, sardines, and beef, I feel amazing. Amazing. And so I was hardly eating any eggs. So that wasn't even contributing to the migraines I was still having. So I don't know. I did discover that I can't eat eggs, which is kind of sad. But
well, congratulations on that. I mean, that must be, to go from constant migraines to 3 in the last 6 months is I mean, that must be an awesome feeling.
It is, especially when you've had them and that was the other thing. I was losing my memory. I was losing my short-term memory. And that's the other thing. My memory is coming back. Some people say they get their, better eyesight and stuff like that. I've noticed that too. And the other thing is my writing has become way better. So whatever damage has been to my brain, it's going to take some time. I don't believe that I'm 100%, because of recovered, but I do a high fat carnivore. That's the other thing I want to share. If anybody wants, is doing anything, wants to try carnivore and you have a lot of pain, eat high fat. The fat does something for pain. It really, really does. And of course, that's really great for your brain. So, and I've had so much, trauma to my brain. And I don't know. The other thing that I think maybe had contributed to my migraines, and maybe, the issues with my health, was just probably a couple decades of a lot of stress. I think that added to everything, like a lot of trauma stress. So yeah, but that's what I would say to anybody. If you want to try carnivore diet, and you're in a lot of pain, especially you got what I had, migraines, there's no answer for them. But the high fat definitely helped with pain. I noticed that too.
Yeah, that must be frustrating when you go to the doctors as well, trying to work out what it is. So you go to the neurologist, you have scans, and it's just like you don't get any answers.
No, And they didn't find anything. They didn't find anything on my brain. There was no lesions. And that was kind of the first step. And I know it probably could have gotten a lot deeper with going into doctors and doing a lot more tests, like blood tests and all that. I didn't do all that. And, you know, in Canada, you have to pay for naturopaths, which I didn't have the money to do which I would have gone to a naturopath, because I definitely believe in, you know, natural healing, properties and medicine, you know what I'm trying to say. But seeing carnivore, you know, all our carnivore stories, I was like, that's what I've got to try this. I've got to try this. And of course, I love meat. I've always been a big meat eater. And that's really strange too, because there's some people that they call it more like ketovore. That's basically what I was like ketovore. So that's where you eat mostly meat and some vegetable. But something obviously was still something was causing the inflammation in my brain or whatever it's been. I don't know. All I know is that doing it this way has definitely helped me, and you feel so good on it. You feel like a brand new person. You feel like somebody in your 20s again, and it's just amazing. I'm going to be 50 this year, so.
Yeah. Oh, me too. Join the club.
All right.
So what kept you going? Because I mean, this is 14 months, and you're watching. So to paint the picture, I imagine from some of the comments I receive, you're watching carnivore videos all the time. There's people saying, I cured this, I did this, I feel better, you know, never felt better in my whole life. And you're doing it too. But after, you know, you've been 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, and you're still getting the migraines and you're still feeling bad and you're still struggling to get out of bed. What kept you going that whole time?
I don't know. I guess probably because it was the testimonies. It was the testimonies. So that's the other thing. I like with people, I try to tell them, like I have a video playlist when I send things to people about carnivore, because it's like sometimes you can plant a seed in somebody's head, but in order for them to really go through the program, in a sense, you know, it's not a program, but it's like you have to be either part of a group, which I am on Facebook. I'm on one of your groups too. And the group chats, the group sharing the testimonies and the YouTube, and I don't know. I just that's what kept me going, I guess. If anything, it was just, you know, eventually this is going to turn around, right? Especially
Nice.
Ribeye Rach. If anybody wants to go see her, she's better now. I mean, she went to specialists. And she's American, so you can imagine the money that they spent on specialists and doctors and all kinds of things she was going through, her surgeries. I mean, and then for her to be 100% again now at this time in her life, same situation, and so encouraging, you know, so encouraging. And then it warms your heart so much when you see people change their life. Because when you are so sick that you want to die, oh, that is no kind of life to live. I'm telling you. And it don't matter if you had $1 million in your account. If you're sick, so sick that you can't even do anything, you know, I always say, like, what is most important? Your health is important. So if you have to spend money on carnivore, now think about it. If you have to spend money on carnivore, and a lot of people will say, oh, carnivore diet, that sounds so expensive. I'm like, you know what? Being sick is way more expensive. Becoming sick is going to be so much more expensive. And, you know, the other thing, if you look at it, if you take the time to learn about carnivore, find out get the information, it's worth it. Yeah, you have to do some legwork. But guess what? It's better than sitting for hours and hours in doctor's offices and going to this doctor and that doctor later on in your life when you're so miserable and you can't do anything anymore. Like, you got to think about what you're doing today. Think about what you want to be 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road. Again, I don't want to be sick and heavy and bedridden.
for someone who maybe is suffering the same kind of thing, just want to get healthier and they want to have that kind of positive growth through their whole life, and they're interested in how to do it, like, how are you eating day to day?
Basically, I eat when I'm hungry, and now that I'm working out, I'm a lot more hungry. So that's one thing about the carnivore diet. I have found that you have to adjust it according to what you feel, what your body's telling you. You know, you can have a guide. Okay, so sometimes they say when you're starting off, do 80-20. You know, 80% of your calories from fat, 20% from protein, and that's great, and that works. And a lot of times I was just doing OMAD, one meal a day, because I wasn't hungry. So, but then as I'm working out more, I'm more hungry. So I'm upping my protein because I was feeling more tired. Well, obviously I need more protein. So and after a while, which is really amazing, is that your body becomes so sensitive. And it's just like, I just know when I need more fat. I just know it. And so, I eat a lot of beef. Today actually I had some of my brisket that I had left over. I'd usually do brisket in the slow cooker, and I don't skim the fat off of the brisket. I cook it in all that beautiful fat, and because that fat is healing, right? And so I eat that, and I eat a lot of sardines. I actually thought that I didn't like sardines, but I was like, you know what? I know these are supposed to be so good for me. So I tried them a while ago, and I was like, hey, these aren't as bad as I thought they were going to be. And so I eat, like, when I'm hungry. If I need a little snack or something, I'll eat sardines or oysters, pork rinds. I do eat some chicken, but if I eat chicken, I usually eat the dark meat. Um, and pork, I rarely eat pork, but I do eat bacon. I'll eat bacon with a big fat juicy hamburger loaded with cheese, and dairy doesn't seem to bother me. So I don't eat a lot of dairy anyways, but I still, and I drink water, and I do drink coffee still. I never did give up coffee because that was just something that I couldn't seem to, but it obviously, I'm healed. So it's not really like the coffee is a big deal, but I do have my whipped butter in my coffee every morning. And but yeah, mostly beef. Love steaks. That's probably the majority of my food.
Nice. So if you're talking to someone and they're interested in getting started, what do you think is the best way to get started to minimize the chance of falling off the wagon or going backwards?
Well, it depends on where they are in their diet, I think. If they're really ready to jump into carnivore, then I kind of it's like I emphasize the high fat, uh, moderate protein. Start that way. Make sure you have your electrolytes, because you are going to feel horrible if you do not have enough electrolytes. Magnesium, potassium, and good salt. I use Redmond salt. And I always put salt in my water. I put salt in. I drink club soda with lemon. Oh, guys, I have lemon too. I know that's not carnivore, but sometimes you eat olives and pickles too. But it just helps me keep going, but I always make sure to put lots of salt on everything, because that keeps that whole system going, because now we're not retaining water anymore. Now our bodies get rid of those electrolytes a lot faster. And if you feel sick, it's usually, and I found if you have headaches, it's because low salt, usually that's the issue. So I always tell them, you have to make sure and keep your electrolytes up. And if they are finding it too difficult The first couple of weeks is pretty tough, especially when you're going, because I went from keto or ketovore to carnivore, so it wasn't a big switch for me. But people that go from a standard American diet, a garbage diet, right to carnivore, that's a bit extreme, because your body is going to go through some major withdrawals, especially if you were a sugar addict. So it's better, I think that it's better to go a little bit slower, whereas maybe kind of graduate. Get rid of all the junk food, get rid of all the processed food, get rid of the sugar, the flour. Go maybe keto for a couple weeks, a few weeks, and then slowly kind of just, do you know what I mean? Because if you get that withdrawal, I think if you get too strong of a withdrawal and you feel really horrible, really sick, and then some people develop diarrhea because your stomach, everything's changing inside of there. And some people can tolerate more fat, some people can't tolerate fat. So it's kind of like you almost have to work with people, right? Kind of find out where they're at. But for somebody that wants to jump right in, I'd say make sure that you have your electrolytes. And if you want to do carnivore, eat the dairy, whatever you can, and then find out little bit by little bit what you're sensitive to. Some people can't eat dairy. They can't eat a lot of dairy because it bothers them. So that's kind of what I tell people. But if they have really bad keto flu or whatever it is, withdrawal from sugar, that just don't jump quite right into it then. Just graduate, because then it's not so much of a shock to your system.
Yeah, nice advice. So Jalynn, do you have a YouTube, or how can we find you online?
I do have a YouTube. It's called Canadian Carnivore. I haven't been doing any videos or anything, but I'm going to put this one on, Dave. I do just have a playlist of a lot of other people's videos on there, but definitely Canadian Carnivore is my YouTube channel. I really wanted to do a lot more, and maybe in the future I will. But since I've been back in my province, I've been working a lot, and I just don't have the time or the energy.
So it's one of the great things is when you say that you just don't have the time. That's such a good reflection on the way you're eating now, because like you're so busy with life now.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is wonderful.
Yeah.
Very happy about that.
Yeah, that's really nice. So, yeah. Jalynn, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us. I really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you very much too. And I hope that if anybody that's listening, that you really, really consider this, because it'll change your life. And I believe that not even, even if you are not sick, if you want to prevent sickness, which is what I did want to do when I was younger, if you want to prevent sickness, you want to prevent diabetes, you want to prevent cancer, you want to prevent dementia, do something now. Do something now while you have today to do it, while you're healthy enough to do it, so that you're not down the road I've seen it, and in an old folks home where people are feeding you. You don't want that. Take care of yourself now. You've got today to change.